So here's my old piece from 2013. Looking at it now, I see so many mistakes. Let's break them down and see how we can fix them. Hi, I'm Darana, and I'm concept artist and illustrator. And in this series, I'm taking your art, or in this case my own art, and painting it over and fixing mistakes based on what you struggle with the most. Feel free to send your suggestions via my website here or via Instagram DMs. And if you're lucky, I will choose your piece to include in my future videos. Links down below. Here I wanted to paint the Frankenstein monster and his bride as if it would be some kind of family portrait. I'm not sure why I included the cat. I think because I just love cats and think that everyone should have one. As you can see, I really sucked at doing backgrounds. To be honest, I still do. I wanted it to be a nighttime and the moon shining through. And I imagined them living in some spooky castle with tall windows. And because I had no idea how to paint it nice, I just took the black void and painted in some tall windows with some blurry, ambiguous background behind them. First and biggest problem here is composition, or more precisely, wrong placed focal points throughout the image. Focal point is one of the most important terms in the composition. This is the places in your image that tells a story. They should draw the most attention, and everything in the image should lead to them and guide the viewer. You drive attention to the focal points through the contrast. It can be tonal contrast or color, or even texture and detail. So let's go back to our image. The first thing you see is the moon. Then your eye bounces to the cat and then maybe to her face. And then it just goes all around to all the small bits and pieces. There was no intention where I placed contrast and high detailed areas. I had no idea that you should detail only things that should draw the most attention. And I detailed things that I enjoyed drawing instead. And this is not the right approach. Another big problem in this image is perspective. Back then, I didn't really understood what it was and how to apply it. And to be honest, I still struggle with that a lot. And if you look at the image, you see that it have at least 3 horizons. And in any given image, you should have just one. It's impossible to have 2 or more. So whatever you draw, decide where your horizon is and go from there. The third big problem in this image is value and lighting. Characters seem like they were cut out of one image and then just pasted on in the wrong background. And this is because the background is pitch black and the character's shadows is not even close there. This is because I wanted them to pop out from the background, so I made it very dark and made them lighter, and I thought, yeah, I fixed it. But no, that's not how it works. Character shadows should have been darker than the shadows in the background and not lighter. This is because of aerial perspective. This is basically when air makes faraway objects seem lighter and less contrasted compared to the closer objects to us. And the last problem, the classic one, proportions and anatomy. So now when we know all the problems, let's go and fix them. The first thing I do is to fix composition and narrative, because this is the base for everything else. I enlarge the canvas and I draw the monster bigger behind the bride, because I want to create more contrast between them. I want her to appear cute and small and feminine, and him to be this dark towering mass above her. He should seem scary at first, but then you look closer and you notice that he's hugging her with one hand and he's petting their cat with another. So it's actually a cute family portrait and not a horror scene. It's a good approach to take 2 things that seem opposite to each other and combine them in your image, because this makes your illustration more interesting. I also decided to switch the background to a portrait wall in an old Victorian house, because this is going to strengthen our narrative of a family portrait and also support this whole aesthetic of a Frankenstein monster we're having here. When refining my sketch, I started with faces, of course, and you can see how much I changed the proportions and perspective of the faces. I made his face to be looking down on us like that, and her face to be slightly tilted and with more softer features. Keeping the horizon in mind, I resketched her body but make her lean on one side, so she appears less stiff. You can also notice that I'm stylizing quite a bit, so their proportions of course not 100% realistic, and this is my intent. When painting characters in the environment, start with the environment, because this is gonna set tone for everything, for the colors, for the light, and for the mood. I tried to make the background interesting, but not so detailed or rendered, so it would take away the attention from our characters. When doing my illustrations, I usually go all over the image in several passes, but I focus mostly on faces and hands. When painting her hair, I started with rendering it as it would be a big solid object. I didn't render separate hair strands as I did last time. This is because it would take way too much attention in that case. So when doing hair, think of them as a big mass first, and then add several strings here and there, but not everywhere. Closer to the face or a silhouette is the best. Also, I noticed a mistake I did in her face when I painted it. This eye is placed wrong, and it's easy to fix. So in order to notice mistakes like that in time before you finish everything, you should flip your image very often. Or in Photoshop, you can open the separate window of the same file and also show it flipped. Go to the window here, and here you can see where you can open the separate window. Drag it to the separate monitor or make it small and place it on the corner of your window. And then in the view, you can check view flipped. So in that case, you will see it all the time in flipped and smaller size. That's how I usually notice my mistakes in time before it's way too late. When doing a second pass on the monster here, I did struggle with his face quite a bit. I wasn't sure if he should be smiling a little bit or if he should be completely stone-faced. So I ended up doing this ambiguous kind of smile, so the audience will question, is he smiling? Yeah, learning from the best here. It's a good tactic to leave something like that in your illustration, so the audience would question themselves and build these crazy theories and try to guess what did you mean with that. I also included more stitches to their design to strengthen it more and show that it's actually a Frankenstein monster in this bright. I don't know why I missed it in my previous image. The rest is just refining some details here and there. As you can see, I struggled with the hands a lot, as one usually does. I'm not really sure about their costume design and the cat's anatomy, so in the ideal world, I would take a break and go and study it more. Study how costumes looked like in this era and came up with some specific design. And I would go and study cat anatomy a bit more. And this is what you should do every time you feel not sure how to proceed or how to draw certain things. At least write it down and then focus your studies on that subject. But for now, we're gonna keep whatever we have and skip the whole studying thing because I want you to get this video faster. I also haven't rendered this image to 100% completion. I left it on this half done stage because of the time constraints, but when I felt like it was enough, I did some color tweak. All I wanted to do is to make the image more appealing to the eyes, add more color contrast, and strengthen the whole mood of this spooky Victorian house. You can say that I'm using two groups of opposite colors here, the greenish-bluish part and the purple-red-orange parts. One trick that can bring your images to the next level is to add rim light. But you have to do it in a correct way. Here I made it kind of quick and dirty. I added this orangish rim light on the sides, which is kind of cheating because no light coming from the sides, but this is fine because when doing 2D illustrations, we don't have to follow real life's physics really hard. All we have to do is to tell a story or evoke some kind of feeling with our audience. So whatever helps you to do that, do it. In this case, this orange rim light would make other colors pop a bit more. It would support our narrative and also help us to separate our characters from the background. Let's recap. If you compare these images now side to side, we can see that in the old image, our attention first goes to the moon, then to the cat, then to the bright face, and then everywhere. But in the fixed image, the attention first goes to the bright face, then to the monster's face, and then maybe to the cat. Also, notice how all the lines are guiding us through focal points and pointing back to them. This is not happening in the old image. Also, in the new image, most rendered parts are their faces and their hands, while everything else is less refined. And in the old image, the most rendered parts are the cat. Cat feels like completely out of place. And her hair is super mega rendered everywhere. And because I have no idea how to render clothes, their sleeves have ridiculous amount of folds, which is fixed in the new image, as you can see. We fixed composition by adjusting contrast in right areas, changing the background, and also adding more contrast between the characters. And also perspective is fixed now, and we have just one horizon line, hopefully. We removed unnecessary details from the cat and Bright's hair and their clothing, pushing these parts more into the background, which helped to bring focal points forward. We also have fixed values, so now our characters placed in the environment rather than a cut-out piece placed on the wrong background. Hope you enjoyed this episode of my Paintover series, and tell me in the comments down below if you learned something new today. I enjoyed painting over this piece more than I thought I would, but I'm pretty sure in 10 years I will look at it and see a huge amount of jarring mistakes I made. And this is okay, that means that we are improving. So don't forget to subscribe and like the video if you did, so I can continue doing that. And I'll see you in the next one. It's where your eye. Wow. And the level layer, which help to bring it can be tonal contrast. Why is my brain like that? Don't subscribe. I mean, you do you. And thank you so much. The last parts is always the hardest ones. Why? I'm done.